Good morning, business ethics scholars, and welcome to our Chapter 1 Recharge. Okay, so today's objective is to reinforce your understanding of Chapter 1. So if you guys recall from earlier in the week, I sent you a Excel spreadsheet that showed how the class performed over Chapter 1 collectively, so how all 30 of you guys did together. There were 17 topics that had missed questions in Chapter 1, and there were about 5 or 6 topics where 10 or more people missed those questions, so about a third of the class missed them. There were some of them where half the class missed them. I do think part of that was influenced by the fact that, everybody's still adjusting to Canvas and McGraw-Hill Connect, because this is the first time we're using Canvas, and the first time we're using Canvas and Connect together. So I think part of it was navigating through the system, because when I looked at the reports for chapters 2 and 3, that number did reduce. There's still some sticky spots, but we didn't have 17 topics where we need to kind of review. So in this video and on this PowerPoint, we're going to address those ones where we had people in the double digits kind of missing the concept. So what I did is I included what the concept was. I included an example question for you to go back in there and practice where it's and as well as where it's located in the reading. And then one of the questions you're going to see actually has its own standalone question in Canvas, because I think that is the one that you'll be able to carry forward into the workplace. It's probably one that you use already. I use it in my workplace directly, like every day. And then in doing this, we're also going to address areas in which I noticed that you guys answered the correct response, but you exhibited a low level of confidence with it. So what that means is on the questions, you can provide your answer choice, but then remember, it also asks you, how confident are you with this response? So there's some of them where I saw people got the correct response, but it looks like they weren't sure why it was right, or they guessed, process of elimination. There's 4 answer choices. C is always the answer, and they picked it, and it just happened to be right. And there was a relationship between those and those missed topics as well. Okay. So I'm going to try to clear up a couple of those. And what I will be doing is I am going to be flipping back and forth between the book, Canvas, and the PowerPoint. And hopefully the sound is better. Like I said, this is my 3rd attempt recording this morning, and the audio was a little funky. I'm having to kind of keep my voice down a little bit because everybody in the house is still asleep. And I've been trying to get this recording done for you guys since 5 a.m. and not wake up anybody in the process. Okay, so concept title 1. Recall the aspects of societies that value individual freedom. So with this one, take a global approach to it. You kind of have to get out of your specific bubble to look at this one, because they could be talking about it in terms of countries that value individual freedom. It could be in terms of generational differences. It can be terms of cultural differences. That's kind of the lens that you'll want to have when you're trying to address this specific topic or question. In the context of reasons why legal compliance, so the law, or like the ordinances, the permits, like those different type of things, the regulations alone, so why legal compliance alone is insufficient, it's not enough to fulfill one's ethical duties. So what you should do, what you ought to do, doing right by the customer, right? Identify a true statement about societies that value individual freedom. So I'll give you a moment to come up with your response. You can write it down, save it to your phone, and we're going to check your answer. Feel free to pause the video if you need to, and to look for it in the book. Okay, so the correct response was they will be hesitant to lawfully require more than just an ethical minimum. So hesitant, they're going to hold back. They're going to regulate, but not fully control what you do in this particular case. And what you'll do is you're going to see that on page 14 of the book, just before you go into page 15 under bullet point 2. Societies that value individual freedom will be reluctant to legally require more than just an ethical minimum. So there it is, like word for word. How I was able to find this quickly is in the top right hand corner. There's a search bar, and I pulled key terms out of the question. So I used individual freedom as my key term. So I pulled it from the concept title, and I pulled it from here. So I think I tried like individual freedoms and ethical duties. And that's kind of what pulled up. Because remember, it's going to show you what the correct answer is. And I was able to find it word for word very fast. Let's see. Oops. So when you go to that in the book, let me make sure I'm on the right page this time. What they're talking about is basically a battle between what you're legally required to do versus what you're not legally required to do, and what you should do or ought to do, because your peers in your industry or society as a whole views it as the right thing to do. That's kind of what they're talking about there. So it's one of those ones where you may have to jump back up a little bit and have that underlying concept there. And yeah, it kind of expands on that further here. From this perspective, an ethically responsible business is merely one that complies with the law. There's no responsibility to do anything further. So it's like, hey, I followed all the regulations. I followed all the codes. I have all my permits. I'm good. But you probably want to look at the means that you did to reach those specific goals that your firm or business had established. It kind of goes back to what I said in that very, very first video. Like, you didn't do anything illegal, but was it shady? Did you bend the rules a little bit? Did you do some creative math to make those numbers make sense? And I think what we want to do is probably look at maybe going a step further in terms of when you're providing a good service for your clients. I would compare it to almost like that win-win situation for everybody. So you're providing that good quality product and all that kind of stuff. More specifically with this one, what they're talking about is like there's certain things that some societies are going to frown upon, requiring certain aspects. So like it says here, we are probably going to stop short of legally requiring parents or grandparents to love their children. It's the right thing to do, but are we going to legally require it? That's up for debate. So that's kind of what they're talking about here. Let's go back over here to the PowerPoint. Okay, concept title 2, recognize the ends of ethical values. So identify a feature of ethical values. Watch the wording here, because what they did is, for a lot of these, they changed one word and it changed the meaning of the response. And I think that's what probably got some people. So this one's on page 24, just above page 25. They term the ends of human welfare. And we're talking about welfare in terms of happiness, in terms of trustworthiness, integrity, health, not in terms of a specific program. Okay. Here's where that one's located. Okay. So you have your definition, like you have ethical values and your definition of it. It is one of your key terms right there. And then the response that came up was acts and decisions that seek to promote human welfare are acts and decisions based on ethical values. To answer this one, you probably want to have a good, solid understanding of what well-being is, which is another question that people missed too. So let's see if we skip ahead. Okay, so this is where you'll probably want to know the distinction between values, like as a whole, versus ethical values. So values themselves are talking about like underlying beliefs that cause us to act or decide one way rather than another. So it could be your personal values, it could be your company's core values, those different types of things that kind of are the driving force behind why you do what you do. Okay. And then it goes a step further into talking about the end goals or the bottom line that they serve. So there's financial values that have have a monetary end. So the goal is to make a profit. The goal is to expand the business. The goal is to keep the business afloat. The goal is to find a more efficient way to put out a product. You know, those different types of things, like it's tied to money. There's those different types of things that go with that. So in looking at ethical values, what they're looking at is do the decisions that you're making for your business in particular, are they also promoting, I would say, are they also promoting happiness? Are they also demonstrating this era of integrity or trustworthiness? Are you doing it in a just or fair manner? Because yeah, your company may be profitable, you guys may be number one, but what did you do to get there? Did you do anything suspect or shady to do it? Are you mistreating your employees? Are you putting out a shabby product? Like, yeah, we can produce it fast and stuff like that, but is it falling apart, or is it potentially putting your clients in danger? You know, those are things we need to kind of consider. Okay, let's go on to number 3 really quick. Okay, concept title 3, identify the kind of well-being promoted by ethical values. So remember, well-being, so happiness, health, is it just? Is it fair? Those types of things. One of the important elements of ethical values is that, choose your answer, they do not promote a selfish and personal well-being. So that's on page 25. And so it's in this pretty much that same area as the previous question. Again, you have to watch the wording with this one, because with some of these answer choices, they changed one word, and that changed the meaning of the question. So even with those, if you're not sure, if you just look for that one word difference, then you can already eliminate one or two answer choices off the bat, and you're just down to a 50-50. And then you'll see it right there, that first line of page 25. Second, the well-being promoted by ethical values is not a personal or selfish well-being. So this is where they're talking about, I guess, like a win-win situation, right? In this particular case, we want to make sure whatever you're doing, your business is successful, you're able to grow and expand, your investors are happy because you guys are making money, they're receiving a return on their investment, and your customers or clients are happy because they are receiving a good quality product. Okay. Concept title 4. Recall that the action people take provide answers to ethical questions. True or false? An individual can only answer ethical questions if he or she explicitly examines these questions. Watch out for those concepts that say only, always, never, where they're kind of making those overgeneralizations. Watch out for those. Because that can change the meaning of your answer too. The response is false. Because people, you can respond to an ethical question with or without examining those questions. Some people may respond to a question and have an opinion about it without researching it at all. That's possible too. So they're not looking at what they should do. It's like what they can do. The ability. Okay. And in this case, this is where they're talking about explicitly examining things. It can also be examined implicitly too. Okay. So that's what you have here. Concept title 5, recall the process of risk assessment. So this is the main one right here. So you'll actually see this one as a standalone question on the discussion board. I posted it a couple of days ago. So you guys want to go out to Canvas to discussion and look at that. So blank, it's a 2-word answer, is defined as a process to identify potential events that may affect an entity. So you're thinking ahead. If I take this course of action, this might happen. If I do nothing, this might happen too. Manage risk to be within its risk appetite. So that's where you're talking about, like, some companies may be a little bit more adventurous than others. Like, yeah, we'll try this out. And others might be a little bit more conservative in the sense of, no, we're going to stay in our lane. This is what we're good at. We're going to stick with what we know. Or to provide reasonable assurance regarding achievement of entity objectives. So, excuse me. Is the situation that we're about to get into, how does it tie into the objectives? Is it related or is it working against it? Is it going to contribute toward our end goal? And the correct answer for this one was actually risk assessment. And then that's where it is right here. It's one of your key terms. And you'll see it right there, word for word, on page 18. Now this one, I see in the workplace directly. As you guys know, I am a business lines commercial underwriter for an insurance company right now. So it's my husband, and as business commercial underwriters, we are the decision makers as far as if a business has vehicles that need to be insured. So we're not the ones selling, we're the enforcers basically, to make sure that we are meeting the like the state and federal regulations. Like, yeah, we're allowed to do this, no, we're not allowed to do this. But also in terms of the company itself, the company may not want to take on a specific risk even though we are allowed to. I'll give you an example of what happened actually yesterday. So we were reviewing a case together, as far as me and the other underwriters, and we received an application for a vehicle, and we had the pictures, and it was for this truck that had a plywood truck bed. Yeah, plywood. Even before even reading anything, like, people were just looking at the photos. So before we even read anything, people were like, that is probably not eligible. And the reason why was what somebody else was saying was, can you imagine if our customer was driving that vehicle down Highway 75 or I-20 and they get rear-ended by somebody driving 80 miles per hour? There's going to be wood chips everywhere. You know, that's not going to hold up. And then even with my husband, who was not even in on this call, he just happened to walk behind me and he saw the picture and he was like, that ain't eligible. And I was like, oh, it's a placeholder. They're getting a custom made truck bed. And he was like, they better not be driving that on the road. He's like, because if they get rear-ended, he's like, look at that plywood. That's going to turn into like a projectile. That's coming through the cab of the vehicle if you have enough force behind it. He's like, that'll be all over the news if we do that. So, like I said, before even reading the business description and everything like that, you see, we were performing that initial risk assessment. So, in one respect, we were looking at the potential financial damages and negative press. But more importantly, like, because nobody mentioned money, everybody mentioned something related to the client's safety. We didn't feel it was appropriate to take on that risk as it is right now, because we did not feel like that the client would be protected in that type of vehicle in the event that an accident occurred. And in that case, you know, we were looking at it from like a company perspective and the client's safety. So, and yeah, when we do that all day, every day. So yeah, you'll see that a lot. I have family members that are kind of like, oh, I don't want to go with that company because they didn't take me on. And I was like, well, that type of vehicle has a high risk of rolling over, or there's issues with securing your load there. That's probably the issue that we don't want to take on. You're hauling hazardous material. You're hauling material that if it's not secure and it flies off of your truck, your load can turn into missiles or projectiles and hit the people behind them if you slam on your brakes. Never mind hitting them, just the stuff flying off. And we're gonna have to pay for that. More importantly, people might get hurt or it might cause like a chain reaction accident with it, and that's just not something we want to take on. So yeah, you'll see that. And then this was the last concept I looked at. Concept Title 6, compare normative disciplines and descriptive disciplines. Okay, so watch my time here, since I gotta clock in 30 minutes. Normative disciplines, they offer an account of how and why people should or ought to act a certain way. Well, it's the right thing to do. This is how it's done here. We don't do that around here. Those types of things. Descriptive disciplines, they offer an account of how and why people do act the way they do. So one is what you should do, like what are the societal norms, what are the particular customs that are associated with you, or I would even go so far as to say how you were raised too. Like there's certain things in your family that they just say you just ought to do it. We've done it this way for years, and this is the way that you just should do it. There's only one way. And then with the descriptive, like we're falling in line with doing the way that those things that we do. Probably is either a result of habit or a result of not liking the consequences too. There's more to it, but that's kind of what I can think of. I can give you an example of that. So in my case, I grew up in a military family, right? Dad was in the Army 21 years. And in his mind, the way that a bed should be made up is with hospital corners. So if you grew up in a military family or in the medical field, you know what I'm talking about, right? And there was just no other way to make up the bed. That's the way to do it. There's one way. So in his mind, that's the way we all should do it. Now, the reason I still do it at the age of 36, even though nobody's checking over my shoulder, is because I didn't like the consequences growing up. Because we had room inspections. And if we didn't do it right, then your bedding got ripped up and you had to do it again. And just that alone, have your parent come in and rip up your bedding and say, do it over, you didn't do it right, in front of your friends or your cousins who had no idea what was going on. They were just mortified. That was enough to ingrain that, okay, this is the way I should make up my bed, and this is the way this is why I still do it that way, because I feel like leaning over my shoulder even though they're not physically here. Okay, and normative and descriptive, those are key terms from page 20 just above. Page 21. And it gives you those exact, it gives you an exact breakdown of what that is. Okay, so if you need more of a refresher on chapter 1, you can click on chapter 1, like when you go into your reports and review how you've done, and you should see a recharge button pop up in McGraw-Hill Connect. And when you do that, you're going to receive customized review questions based on your specific areas that need remediation. Again, I took a collective approach with this one. I do have your individual reports that show exactly what you need to tighten up on. This one's more of kind of like a foundational thing. So chapter 1 was kind of hard to explain, but the risk assessment is definitely something that you're going to want to carry forward as we prepare for some of your discussion questions and ultimately your final project. Okay. You're welcome to stop in for virtual office hours on Saturdays. You can also set up a one-on-one virtual appointment with me via video call to talk some of this stuff out, because a lot of it is abstract and theoretical. You're going to find that there's a lot of shades of gray with some things, like with the key terms. Yeah, they may have some specific responses, but then with some of your like writing assignments, for example, there's going to be some shades of gray in there where this might be the best course of action in this specific situation. If this one variable is different, then you might actually want to do it this way. And then there's my contact information there. The last thing I did want to show you guys is on the discussion board. Make sure this doesn't time out on me. under the discussions tab is your discussion question number 2, risk assessment process. So that's going to be here. And here's what you need to do. So after reviewing chapter 1, briefly describe the risk assessment process. You just saw that, and I just showed you exactly where it was. Now, have you observed these decision-making steps in action at your current or past employer? If yes, describe the situation. So what were they doing? And what was your role in the decision-making process? So were you the head decision maker? Were you part of the committee? Were you somebody that was just impacted by the results? Like you were like, hey, I wasn't the one that brought to the conference table, but it did impact me directly as an employee. If not, think of a situation where, think of a situation that may occur where you need to apply the risk assessment process with your current or future employer. So those of you guys that are thinking about, changing companies, it could also be with you trying to move up with where you are. I know quite a few of you guys have already found where you want to be, and you're just trying to move up into a different role. So maybe with your current or future department. And then in particular for our business owners, so some of you guys own your own business, some of you guys, this is what you're going to be doing. As the primary decision maker for your company, think of a time you've had to use the risk assessment process, or that you may need to use it in the future. Who will you bring to the table to help you make the decision? So do you have a business partner? Are you bringing your significant other that's serving kind of as your business partner? Do you have key employees that you're going to bring to the table? Is your business just something that's run by you? So if it's just you, then just put, I'm an army of one. Who will be impacted by your decision? So is it going to impact you directly? Is it going to impact your family? Is it going to impact your business partners, your employees, your customers? So not necessarily a good or a bad effect. It's just, I want you to think about your stakeholders and their involvement. So whether, let's say you're faced with decision A or decision B, or to do nothing. If you do decision A, who's going to be impacted? If you go with decision B, who's going to be impacted? If you do nothing, who's going to be impacted? Okay. And then just I guess the most important thing with this one is if you're sharing a story from the workplace, you don't have to reveal the name of the company. And if you're giving examples of individuals that were involved, you don't have to give their names, like for confidentiality purposes. You can just say a former colleague, someone I know, former supervisor, those different types of things, okay? And then from there, responded to classmates. I'm really interested to see what you guys have to say with this one in particular. It may be one of those things that you've done and you've just never realized it, or you've seen it, but you've never seen it formally laid out. All right, so that is pretty much all I have got for you guys today. As always, if you need anything, send me a message and let me know, and keep an eye out for a follow-up to chapters 2 and 3 coming within the next day or two, okay? Take care. Thank you. Bye.